Good morning, guys.
Morning, Rabbi.
All right, vamos. With the help of Hashem, we are learning ERUVIN Daf Tzadik Aleph. We began yesterday on Daf Tzadik Amid Beis. Amar Rav Yehuda Kishatim Soleimer. And he makes a careful analysis, further detailing the sheet of Rab Meir that we're going to quickly review right now. And we're going to continue on Daf Tzadik Aleph Amid Aleph L'divrei Chachamim. And then we'll better appreciate the sheet of Rab Shimon. Now we're going to have today another machlokes between Rav and Shmuel, and just to share the following. Rab Shimon is the one that holds that you can carry mechatzir l'chatzir. He's the most lenient one. However, as it says in the Mishnah, that's only correct for those kalim that when Shabbos began, they were already in the chatzir. Kalim sheshafsu babayis, and then they were taken out into the chatzir, even according to Rab Shimon, may not be taken from one chatzir to a neighboring chatzir. So says Rav that when does Rabbi Shimon, the Tanach of Shimon, say that you can carry kalim mechatzir l'chatzir even though they did not make an eruv? That's only if it's coming from a chatzir that did not have an eruv chatzerus made in it. Therefore, people that live in the bottom going into this chatzir, into chatzir aleph, they're not allowed to carry anything from the bottom to the chatzir. So therefore, there's no fear that something that really began in the bayis, but's now legally in the chatzir, will be taken to the neighboring chatzir. But it says, Rav, that even according to Rav Shimon, if you are living in a chatzir that made a proper eruv chatzerus, an internal eruv chatzerus, which ups the likelihood that kalim that were in the house when Shabbos came in will be in the chatzir because you are allowed to take it into the chatzir, to prevent that from being taken to the neighboring chatzir, even if you know something was in the chatzir when Shabbos came in. Since it's in a chatzir that made an eruv, even Rav Shimon is moided that you may not take anything mechatzir l'chatzir, and Shmuel disagrees with that Shmuel says that Rav Shimon makes no such difference. Okay, Rav Shimon says clearly that Kalim Shashav Subabayis may not be taken l'chatzir, but we're not afraid that a person is going to take something into the chatzir and then they're going to take that very Keli into the neighboring chatzir. We're going to learn on Daf Tzadik Aleph and Tzadik Aleph on Beis various Mishnayos and Braises that will try to prove or disprove this machlekes between Rav and Shmuel. We're going to have a Braise today on Daf Tzadik Aleph on Beis that's really going to contain a great chazara of many fundamental dinim that we learned over the past 15, 20 days. And finally, on Daf Tzadik Aleph on Beis, we're going to see in a Braise the difference between a mavui and a chatzir in the context of that whenever you have a keli that's in a chatzir, even if no one made an eruv there, if when Shabbos began it was in the chatzir, l'kula alma, you can carry that keli from one part of the chatzir to another part of the chatzir. After all, a chatzir is enclosed by all four sides, halachically, so why would you not be allowed to carry it? Masha'inkein a mavui, even if it has a lechi or a koyda, if shitufei mubois were not made, since at the end of the day, even with the lechi or koyda, it's open towards the Reshus HaRabim, one may not carry an article that began in the mavui to another part of that mavui when a shituf was not made, and God willing, we'll be learning a lot more. So again, let me just quickly chazir Rabbi Yehuda's Kishatim Saloim L'Divrei Rav Meir, that even though Rav Meir and the Mishnah Daf Pei Tes only spoke about the leniency that he has migag legag, but we apply this migag legag, mechatzir lechatzir, mikarpeif lekarpeif, and like Rashi pointed out. But let's remember that Rav Meir does have one chumrah that the Chachamim do not subscribe to, and that is the gezerah mishum teil berabim, mishum teil bereshus harabim. So therefore, for example, Rav Meir would not allow you to carry from a gag into a chatzir simply because the gag is much higher than the chatzir. The only area, like Rashi points out, where Rav Meir has a problem that one may not carry from one domain to another domain is a house itself, because since people live in the house, it's two different diyodim. Gag legag, people don't live on a roof as much as they live in the house. That is where we left off, Bishitas Rav Meir. And now, Chebra, Daf Tzadik Aleph, Amud Aleph, the top line in the Amud. Furthermore, says Rav Yehuda, and again, even though in the Mishnah, all of the Chachamim were focusing on the Gag by them saying the words Echad, Kol Echad V'Echad Reshus B'fnei Atzmai. That was the whole one-liner in the Mishnah. However, you'll find that Gagin V'Chatzeros Reshus Achas. Wow, which means that L'divrei Chachamim Chevre Halka. Not only are you allowed to carry yes mechatzir lochatzir, not migag legag, but yes mechatzir lochatzir, since the Chachamim do not subscribe to that chumrah of Rav Meir, Gezerah mishum teil b'reshus harabim, and therefore the Chachamim also will allow you to carry or to be mekatev if you have this amud in your backyard. You could use it, even if it's another reshus hayachid. So the Chachamim will even allow you to carry from a gag to a chatzir. Gag in the chatzir is reshus achas. Wow. So they actually are quite more lenient than they appear. Where are they more machmer than Rav Meir? Only by gagin. Only by gagin. Why? Because just like we spoke out, even with Rav Meir, mibayis labayis, without an eruv in between them, no one says you can carry from my house directly into your house, because it's different diyodim. That mamash separates them. The Chachamim hold that since the gag is on top of the bayis, so the status of it's a dira, and that's another dira, goes up into the roof. That's why migag lagag you may not carry, because it's mibayis labayis. But from my gag even to your chatzir, even though it's my gag, I live in the house. But if it's not migag ligag, gagin the chatzeres is a reshus achas. The only thing that the Chachamim consider a separate type of domain is a karpev. And as we'll see in Amud Beis, a mavui and a karpev go more together, l'chachamim. So Gag and Chatzir is in the same category, even when no eruv was made. Let's read inside Rashi. It's more or less in middle, or a little bit towards the bottom of the middle of the narrow Rashis. It's around 36 to 40 lines from the top. L'divrei Chachamim. Says Rashi, first of all, Delegazru mishum tail. So therefore, they will hold, says Rashi, the Chachamim, that Gagin v'chatzeros reshus achasein, loy sheyatalto migag l'gag, zois loy. Because im chalukim ba'aleim, there we're speaking about obviously two different homes belonging to the different peoples. And why is that? Because mishum digagin l'rabanan kebatim mashvuluhu. Since they are chaluk, alidei chiluk shalamaton, bias labias for sure not. L'chachamim not legag legag. Avol michatzer shel rabbim. Chol rabbim means that many people have usage to it. Even two people, that's already called here a rabbim. L'chatzer shel rabbim mitaltalin. So it's not only, the Gemara just speaks about gag and l'chatzer. The Rashi says it's avada, that l'chachamim, yes, mechatzer l'chatzer. And not only that, even umigag l'chatzer, the rabbim, yes, mitaltalin, I ba'aflagav the gag reshus didei, and the chatzir belongs to a shutfus, even if he's one of them or not. Kedatanya bebraisa lekaman, that hoyel v'gag tashmishe einoi tadirhu. They have a mam mishkabayis. So again, migag legag, that's already too much. Mine is like a little bit like a bias. Yours is a little bit like your bias. That is where Chachamim say you may not do. But even if it's migag lechatzir, you are allowed to carry. Only what? When there's an Eruv, according to everyone, you can carry. Just not let Meir. Just not let Meir. Tell B'Rishus Rabbi. And let's go back to the Rashi. And Karpeifos l'Chachamim is a separate domain. It's not in the category of a gag nor of a chatzir. V'afilu hein shel shnayim the chol reshus. Another people like mikarpav lekarpav guys yichap also good. Also good. Even if they belong to two different people, because the chol reshus sheshma yishaver muterlai chutz, aside of the bottom which is given chutz v'nagagin, where that is the only area where the chachamim are machmir. Avol michatzer lekarpev, even if they belong to the same person, it's aser, because they're the type of reshus hayachid of a chatzer and the other type of a karpev, they themselves are already considered separated. Okay. Now let's go back inside the Gemara, on top of the Yamid, third line from the top. The Divrei Rab Shimon, this is all Rav Yehuda, Kulam Rishus Achasein. Now I know that we said this correctly when we learned the Mishnah, but there is a big chiddush in that. Because if you, just going back to the Peites, the words that Rab Shimon says in the Mishnah, he says, Echad Gagois, the Echad Chatzerois, the Echad Karpifois, Rishus Achasein. V'chulei. Very important. One might have erroneously thought, you know what Rab Shimon means when he says Echad Gagois from Gag L'Gag, or from Chatzir L'Chatzir. But now that Rav Yehuda already told you that even Rav Meir allows you to carry Migag L'Gag, even Rabbi Meir allows you to carry Chatzir L'Chatzir, even Rabbi Meir allows you to carry Mikarpov L'Karpov. And certainly the Chachamim allow the same. Not only that, we said that the Chachamim even allow you Migag L'Chatzir. The Chumrah of the Chachamim is not Migag L'Gag, not Migag or from a Chatzir to a Karpav, but one with the same Migag L'Gag, the Chatzir L'Chatzir, has even Rav Meir allows that. So where will you have the leniency of Rab Shimon unless extrapolates Rav Yehuda that Rab Shimon holds you can carry Migag L'Chatzir and you can even carry Migag L'Karpev. All of the Shuyas Hayachitin are considered the same Rishus. The only area for which you need to have a Eruv Chatzeros is either Mibayis L'Bayis, that's L'Kula Alma, or a Keli that was Shoyvis, when Shabbos came in, it wasn't the Bayis, then even according to Rab Shimon, if it was taken to the Chatzir, then it may not be taken to any other Rishus. It was taken to the Chatzir because there was an Eruv, we'll see later in the Amid. But then it can't be carried further. But that's the Chiddush based on how we have understood Rav Meir and the Chachamim. So this must be the novelty and the area where Rav Shimon argues with the two prior Tanach. Now this is a big Chiddush. And let's go back, Chavra, to what we learned 2 days ago already. That means the first Machlokes of Rav and Shmuel. And in the case of the Mishnah, where the Chachamim hold, That's where Chachamim are machmir over Rav Meir. Migag legag loy. Migag legag only because it's on top of the house, as we just learned. So Rav says, oy bazoi, you can't even carry on the gag more than 4 amos. Because Rav doesn't allow you to use good asik, because the mechitzos are not nikoros. And since there's no good asik, so then it's nifritza, b'meloy l'makayim ha'asar loy. That was a big chiddush. So the Gemara said, and Shmuel argued. So the Gemara says, I have a Tanya that will clearly write like Rav in the machlokes that we just mentioned, and another Tanya, Kavasi, that Rav Yehuda in Pshat in Rav Shimon. And again, we only learn Pshat in Rav Shimon the way we learned it, based on Rav Yehuda's Kishatim Solem L'Divrei Rav Meir. Because if not, Rav Shimon will be repeating what Rav Meir says. That forced us to say that Rav Meir allows to take it Migag L'Chatzir, Michatzir L'Karpev. Okay, so let's begin. Tanya Kavasi the Rav says in a Braisa that Kol Gag Yisrael B'Shus Achasein. Guys, whose sheet is this? Not the Chachamim, right? The Chachamim don't allow you to go Migag L'Gag. This is Shitas Rav Meir. And however, you may not take from a gag to a chatzir. Clearly, again, according to the Chachamim, we just said you are allowed to take migag l'chatzir. The divrei Chachamim gagan b'chatzeros are a one rishus. This is all Rav Meir. So you're not allowed to take migag l'chatzir. You're not allowed to go michatzir l'gag. And now the kelim sheshafsu b'chatzir muter l'talta b'chatzir. This is true. Even if this very chatzir did not have an internal eruv, doesn't matter. The chatzir, like we mentioned in the intro, halachically is a partition off by all 4 sides. By all 4 sides, halachically, why would you not be allowed to carry in there? Likewise, if something when Shabbos came in began on a gag, mutal l'taltalon b'gagin. Now, guys, this is alpha divrei Rav Meir that holds that what? That you cannot carry migag l'gag. Okay, it's considered different to the shiur. So every gag is considered a reshus b'fnei atzma. I'm sorry. Okay, we just learned that Meir holds kol gagois a reshus achas. Muter l'taltal b'gagin. If the keli began on the gag, you are allowed to carry on the gag. Don't forget Rav spoke l'divrei Chachamim. This is all Rav Meir. That's what this is, Rav Meir. However, because if from one gag to the other gag, there is a discrepancy of a height 10 tvachim difference, this becomes like the amud in your backyard. It's a whole separate area. The gezeidah, like we know on Peites, tail to the Shus Rabbi.
Rabbi, there's a lot of static on the line. Is it maybe possible to move the microphone or something like that? I don't know what it's from.
That's interesting. The microphone that I'm using is connected to the Chabad.org camera, and this is connected to the. I think I can do.
On YouTube, it's worse.
Huh?
On the YouTube, it's even worse.
That's not good. That's not good. I don't know. You know what to do over here. Okay. Now. That's the
Rabbi, it's perfectly clear over by me. Over.
Okay. First of all, the Chachamim argue kol echad v'yechad reshus la'atzman. Let's go to the gag, and now listen to this. And the next line, this is mamish, the words of Rav. The ein mitaltalin boy ela bedalit. Clear. It says not only is every gag a separate to the shus. On each gag, you cannot carry more than 4 amas. So that's clearly Shitas Rav. Because Lashita Shmuel, since we do say good asik mechitzta, you can't go migag l'gag. But good asik mechitzta, it's not different to the meloy, the mekayim asik. Kain kavasi Rav Yehuda. Again, that the Rav Shimon in the Mishnah doesn't mean you can carry migag l'gag. It doesn't mean you can, of course you could. It doesn't mean that, only that, because even Rav Meir holds of that. I feel that Rav Meir is more than that. He means you can go migag l'chatzir and mechatzir l'karpel. That means he's more lenient than Rav Meir. In the areas where the Chachamim is more lenient than Rav Meir, he's even more lenient than the Chachamim. Since Rav Meir doesn't allow migag l'chatzir. The Chachamim allow migag l'chatzir, but not migag l'karpel. Not michatzir l'karpav. The Rav Shimon even allows that. And how do we know that? Because Amar Rebbe, Like Yeshoyinu learned them Torah Eitzel Rav Shimon b'Tekoya. And obviously they were in his yeshiva, they were following his ruling. They wanted to take a bath. We see clearly that they almost needed to bathe every day. Now, yes, they made a takana not to bathe in hot water, with the exception of Chamei Tveria, and could be the mayon that they went to bathe in was naturally warmed up, and they're allowed to do it even in warm, or it was cold. It was a hot summer day. But the problem they had, well, the issue was not taking the bath. The issue was they needed to have, today you would say, the shampoo. There they used oil, and they had a towel. So how did they get there? But Ma'ilim, Shemin, and the aluntis. We took the oil on the towel, and we went migag legag. Migag legag koydem kol. That's not like the chachamim. The chachamim, you were not allowed to go, right? Migag legag. And then they went migag lechatzim. This is like the chachamim. But then they went mechatzim lechatzim. Right? It can be like the chachamim. Umechatzim lekarpov. So not Rav Meir allows that, and not chachamim allow that. That must be Shitas Rav Shimon. Umikarpov lekarpov achar. Once they figured out, they made a derech where they never went into a karmelis. They obviously never went into a reshus harabim. As long as they remained in a domain in which you can carry in that domain itself, there was no eruv made, no problem. And obviously the shemen and the aluntis did not begin in the house. It began already in a chatzir. Ad shoyinu magiyim eitzel amayon shoyinu roichtzen boy. Is a raya to Rav Yehuda in his understanding and the Tana Rebbe Shimon. Now, we already have the raya, but now let's finish reading the Braisa. Amar Rebbe Yehuda Maisom. Guys, is it better, the static for you, Danny? No. Amar Rebbe Yehuda Maisom b'shas hasakonon. V'hayinu masakona was that the government did not allow Yidden to read the Torah in public. No religious gatherings, and certainly not reading Torah. So what did they do? So they made minyanim in hiding. And again, they needed to get the Sefer Torah every week. They needed a new hiding place to run away from the city. Here again, everyone relied on Rab Shimon. Again, so this l'chayda zaraya again, that you are allowed to carry even mikchatzer lekarpev. So Amrulai, the Chachamim say, listen, like Rav Yehuda pointed out, the Chachamim hold Gagan and Chatzeres are the Shusachas, they're lenient, and the Chumrah is only by Gag Legag. But a Karpev is separate from a Chatzer. Why were they allowed to do that? That was because Shas Hasakana, ain't Shas Hasakana Raya. Don't bring up proof from a Shas Hasakana. With there we were able to be more lenient, and everyone then, Kadayu Rav Shimon, that can also mean that. The question that they relied on the Shita because there was a Shas Atchak. By the way, many people bring this as a raya. Many people heard that to move a Sefer Torah, you can only do that if you read it 3 times. That's we're noyeg that way right now, but these are what it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And this is one of the rayas that they bring in the Periscope, because when they carried a Sefer Torah for Shabbos, then it was. On Shabbos, we read the Torah twice. We don't read the Torah 3 times. Shabbos morning and Shabbos afternoon. No. That's clearly where they argue. The Mishnah began, we forget. The Mishnah began, Kol Gagois Ho'ir Shusachas. The Chachamim say, Gag legag, you cannot carry. So when we learned the Mishnah, we said, the Chachamim are more machmer. Now it comes out, no, only by Gagin are they more machmer. Not only do they allow me chatzir l'chatzir, which Rav Meir allows, they even allow me gag l'chatzir because they don't have the gezerim mishum teil. 2 different. No. If there's a gag and a gag shloimah, because of us not saying good asik mechitzta, that's why we're learning in Shitas Chachamim L'Rav that you can't carry more than Daladamas. But if I have a standalone gag, then the outer walls, which I can see, I can carry on the gag. Not only that, migag legag, you can't carry l'chachamim because it's an extension of the house. It's like bayis l'bayis. But if it's migag l'chatzit l'Rab Shimon, you can carry. Okay. Good. Says the Gemara, referring back to the Mishnah, Rab Shimon Omer, as Rab Yehuda explained it, that literally all of the types of reshuyos other than abayis are considered the same, and therefore, if as long as a keli did not begin in the bias, like we had in the story now in Takaya, you can take it from any reshus hayachid to any other. Whole takana of eruvei chatzeres was all from bias l'chatzer. Says the Gemara Amarav, the halach is like Rab Shimon, and here's like we mentioned in the intro. Now today's machlokes of Rav and Shmuel. When does Rab Shimon say Yeshita? This is huge. Only Shaloi Eruv. In this chatzet itself, there was no Eruv Chatzeres made, meaning that kalim that begin in the bias will not be taken out to the chatzet. Certainly not beheaded, even though we'll see an exception. There is a hefted take away, but we'll get to that in a moment. So since when you look at the chatzet on Shabbos, you could presume nothing in this chatzet began in the bias. How would it get there? That's where Rab Shimon says anything here you can take to any. You can take it from one to another chatzet, take it to even a karpef. However, avol eruv, but if an eruv chatzeres was made, which means that there's a possibility that kalim that you find now in the chatzet began before Shabbos in the bias, then even Rab Shimon will agree that you can't take it from one chatzet to the other. It's amazing. That means Rab Shimon will be right in the Mishnah, as Rav Yehuda explained, without this nuance. Rav Meir says you could take michatzer l'chatzer. The Chachamim say you could take michatzer l'chatzer. But now we're focusing on Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon's greatest leniencies are never made when there was an eruv. Why? The Gemara explains. Because they goes in on Dilma, Asila Fukim, under the bottom l'chatzer. You won't know about it. And then you're going to take it from this chatzer to the next chatzer. Shmuel Amar, he completely disagrees, and we paskin. You see, like Shmuel signed the Rambam, you see in the Ein Mishpat and in the Torah and Shulchan Aruch. That what? That bein ervu, bein loy ervu. You are allowed to carry mechatzer l'chatzer. Now, if you know the keli was shoyvus babayis, of course you may not. But we're not afraid. And not only that, this is Rabbi Yechanan agreeing to Shmuel that the chenam Rabbi Yechanan to Rav or to those who came with Shitas Rav, mi lachashecha. Who whispered that into your ear? That Rab Shimon limits his leniency only shalai ervu. No, bein ervu, bein shalai ervu. Rabbi Yechanan and Shmuel are on the same side of this machlokes. And my friends, we're not going to conclude this so quickly. We're going to finish today's daf, and we're going to continue tomorrow with the Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan. So let's begin it. Maskav lo Rab Chizda. This first one is Akasha, both against Shmuel and against Rabbi Yechanan. He's asking a question, not from a Mishnah or a Brais. He's asking from a Svara. According to you, it comes out that there can be two kelim in a chatzar. That means, and ervu, which means that we know that this was shoyvus babayis, and you're going to have to halt cup at this. I can't carry to the neighboring chatzar because that was shoyvus babayis. The other one began Shabbos in the chatzar. Are we allowing such a thing to happen? Because normally when you have two kelim, if one can be carried, it's only natural that sooner or later people will make a mistake and they're going to carry even the one that may not be carried. So Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan tell Rab Chizda, we already find the precedent not that long ago where Rab Shimon says something similar. It's going to be so similar that we're going to have to, the Rishonim speak out. Why isn't that really Akasha against Rav? But what do we find similar? That Rab Shimon L'Tami Dolei Gaza. That's the Mishnah we had on Daf Mem Hey Amud Beis. That was repeated again on Daf Ayin Aleph. Amar Rab Shimon. Now, Daf Mem Hey, we're speaking about three people that have different Eruv Chumin, and with each one only has Daladamas. And with the middle ones, Daladamas overlaps to the outer of the right and the outer to the left. Then the Rab Shimon was trying to say that even though the two outer ones don't overlap, but it doesn't take away the permissibility of the inner one to go to the right and to go to the left. And he brings that ayah from Chatzeros. And each one is psuchas l'reshus harabim. And the irvu shtei hachitzoni is only with the emtsois. So the Rab Shimon says that the middle one, he muteres simon. You can carry from the middle one to the outer to the right, from the middle to the outer to the left. The hain and the outer ones can go. They're mutar to go to the inner one. Mutar ima. However, since all three were not ma'arif, so the din is taku beis hachitzonis asurim zen. And the Chachamim argued with Rab Shimon. But Rab Shimon, we're speaking here about Rab Shimon. Rav Shimon clearly, money from the outer chutzner to the right, and it's going to go to the middle one, and then it's going to end up going to the outer chutzner to the left. We don't say that. That's exactly the chiddush of Rav Shimon. So hachinami, that's Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan. Rav Shimon doesn't subscribe to that view. Okay, Masav Rav Sheshes, now the kasha will be against the Rav, and that will be from our Mishnah. Here are the words that we have enough peites. But Rav Shimon Oimer, echad gagois, echad chatzeirois, ve'echad karpifois, v'shus achaseim lekelim shushavsu b'toicham, v'loi lekelim shushavsu b'toicham bayis. Rav Sheshes is asking a practical question. And like this, 3 lines from the bottom. I omrad b'shloima, like Shmuel, like Rabbi Yechanan, that Rav Shimon's leniency is even the Eruv. So therefore, it's shaykh that there should be a keli v'chatzah that began in the house because she made an eruv. I know the mishkachas law, money the bottom v'chatzah. But if you Rav are right, and Rav Shimon is b'chlal not addressing the scenario where you made an eruv, so Shlomo, how is there something that there will never be a metzias halachik? That's kosher. That something is going to be in the chatzah for Rav Shimon even to need to say v'loy lekelim shoshavsu b'seichabayis. How did it get there? It's a big doichik to say that the whole statement of Rav Shimon was only if someone violated Shabbos. The Gemara says that he himself came to the answer. Rav Sheshes himself answered. Who Ma'asillah? He asked it. Yeah, let me tell you, there's no eruv. One thing is clear. I'm allowed to get dressed on Shabbos and walk out into my chutzner, even though my pants was in my drawer when Shabbos came in. If there's no eruv between the house and the chutzner, carrying and wearing a garment when we're on the Shabbos is not called carrying. Now, I'm not going to take off my pants in the chutzner. So the examples the Mishnah gives is the kusma with a cap, a hat, the kumta with a cap, or the sudra with a scarf. Yeah, these are articles that it's very likely that you'll take them off in the chutzner. And since you wore it to the chutzner, no yisur happened. Precisely for that is Rav Shimon saying that those kelim may not be taken the chutzner l'chutzner. Why? Because they're called mana dabatim. Okay, so therefore Rav is not refuted at all. Rav Tzadik Aleph on the base. Again, we're going to continue quoting different. Here it's going to go a brisa. The beauty of this brisa is that we're mamash going to chazit dinim that we began already on Daf Ayin Hey. Come on. Tashema, and this is going to be a kasha against Shmuel. This is going to be a proof, an attempted proof to Rav from the following verse. It says in the verse, Anshe Chatzah, Ba'anshe Mirpeses. Someone has a picture, you can put the picture on the screen. What's the Anshe Chatzah, Anshe Mirpeses? You have 2-story house. Let's go 2-story house. The people that live downstairs, their access to the chasr is glatik, direct. The people that live on the Aliyah, of course, the only way they're going to get to the Rishus HaRabim is ultimately by walking down a ladder into the chasr outside. But their homes open up to a merpeses. The people that live on the 2nd story who are all using the merpeses, they made an eruv amongst themselves, so they can carry to the merpeses. The people that live downstairs, they made an eruv chatzeiros amongst themselves. They can carry from the house into the chatzor. We are not following Shitas Rabbi Akiva. We are following the Shita of the Chachamim that says that the regel hamuteres b'mekoymam is einoi oiseres shaloi b'mekoymam. It's the fact that the people that live upstairs have what we call the drisas regel. Remember, the right of easement. It doesn't asir the b'nei ha'chatzor to carry from the house into the chatzor. Because they made an eruv for upstairs. Now, no, they did not make a combined eruv. So what's the issue? The issue now, well, that was just the intro from that. Hey, the intro now is that you have this 3rd area. The 3rd area is an area that both the Meteses and the Bnei Chatzot have rights to use. The 3rd area is Kol Shegavoya Yutfachim. If the 3rd area is 10 tfachim or more above the ground of the chatzir. Remember that whole sugya? In other words, for them to get there, they have to be zoydik. It's tashmishoy kosher. And this top of it's a post, it's a mound, but the top of the post or of the mound, that must be the pshat, is within 10 tfachim from the merpeses. So the people that use the merpeses have an easier access to the top of that amud. So here we say, even though the Bnei Chatzar and the merpeses were not ma'arif together, who do we give the third area to? To the ones who have tashmishay benachas. Therefore, the next word, lim merpeses. However, what happens if it is pachus mikan? Pachus mikan means that it's less than 10 tfachim from the downstairs. It's less than 10 tfachim from the merpeses. It's both easy. So it says lechatzir. If you remember, when we learned above, the Gemara explains lechatzir means af lechatzir, and af lechatzir means therefore asr for both. So once it's equally, in this case, easy or equally difficult, it asks one on the other. Now, weiter, we're not done yet. To have this, thank God for Rashi. Rashi is 40 lines from the top of the Amud. Lamed Dvarim Amurim means, the whole kasha shleim until now was, can they carry to the Amud? Forget about the Amud now. First, it's based on the fact that the Chatzar and the Merpeses are not Ma'ura. So, Lamed Dvarim Amurim, the Mechalkim Reshus Chatzar Merpeses. Now that we have learned the Rabbi Yehuda, hold on. Who says you have to make an eruv between the chatzar and the merpeses? Whose shita is that? Because who cares if they were not going to make an eruv chatzeres? So the whole issue of the third domain is based on the two domains being separated, meaning that they may not carry one to the other. That's only 3 lines from the top of the Gemara. Shahoyu elu shel rabim, the elu shel rabim. They were, like we mentioned, they were owned by many residents. In other words, many people lived in the house, and all of them had access to the chatzar. Many people lived on the second story, and all of them had access to the mirpeses. And not only that, but the eruv elu la'atzman, the elu la'atzman. Okay. Just explaining why the people that live in the houses, yes, can carry to the chatzar. The people that live in the merpeses or in the Aliyah, yes, can carry to the merpeses. Or another case will be oishal yechidim, only one house open up to the chatzar. I'm just explaining that each domain can carry into their domain, right? There's only one house upstairs, one house by the merpeses, which is why they don't need an eruv. But if you have many houses opening up to the chatzar downstairs, and you have many people living on the merpeses, opening up to the merpeses, and which means that they may not even carry something that begins Shabbos in their house to the chatzar, in their house to the merpeses. Or then says the Braisa, you know what we say? We say God and a chatzar and an achsadra and a merpeses, kulan v'shus achasein. Wow. And they can carry one to the other. And by default, the moment you are allowed to carry from, let's say, from the chatzar to the merpeses, then both of them can carry to the amud. The whole issue of the third area, since they did not make an eruv, so the third area is owned by both. So one aser is on the other. But if they can carry to each other, then they can carry to the third area. So what do we see clearly over here? Hama says the Gemara that they did not make an eruv. That's why it's permitted to carry in between them. But if they would have made an eruv amongst themselves, meaning they would have been allowed to carry from the house into the chatzar, from the Bnei Aliyah to the merpeses, then they would not be allowed to carry one into the other. Now, whose sheet is this? That's Rav Shimon. And clearly you see like Rav, that even Rav Shimon's leniency that allows you to carry, let's say, mechatzar to merpeses, that's only the lo yirmu. So that's a raya to Rav, and really that's a kasha on Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan. So says the Gemara, no. Maybe this brisa follows the Rabbanon, and that's Gavaldik. And that's all based on what we learned in Rabbi Yehuda. And guys, let's look inside Rashi 8 lines before the end of the narrow lines in Rashi. And maybe it's the Rabbanon. The Moide, as we learned, the Rabbanon were machmed migag legag, but they were Moide migagin v'chatzeiros v'reshus achasein. And guys, that would include the merpeses. And ve'inu vadai lo yisharu heicha de'eru. The whole beauty of the Mishnah from Daf Mem Hey Amid Beis that Shmuel brought to substantiate his shita, that Rav Shimon doesn't make a gzeira in the case of the three chatzeros, and the outer ones made an eruv with the inner one, but they didn't all three make together. Remember, that was only Rav Shimon. The Chachamim over there, and that does not allow you, that we have clearly in Daf Mem Tes Rashi brings. Three chatzeros apsucha izu the pligi ad Rav Shimon, and they say shloshta masurim. So there's no doubt what Rav says in Rav Shimon, everyone says l'Rabbanan, because that's really connected to the machlokas of the three chatzeros, which gives Shmuel the right to say Rav Shimon can be lenient. So this Beraisa, if not for Rav Yehuda that we learned today, there was no way in the world that we would have said that this Beraisa could follow the Chachamim, because this Beraisa is saying that a Gag and a Chatzir and a Chsadr and a Pes is Rishus Achas. The whole beauty of Rav Yehuda was that his Kishatim Soloimer, he clarified Rav Meir, and based on that, he clarified the Chachamim, and Chachamim God came out very lenient. The Chachamim's Chumrah is only Migag Legag. So therefore, the Beraisa can be like the Rabbanan. According to the Rabbanan, that leniency of the Rabbanan is only Kishaloi Ervu. And Kisha Ervu, then Takanat, because since you can bring a man at the bottom to the Chatzar, then we are afraid that is going to be taken Legag. Okay. And not only that, not only could it be the Rabbanan, but God Daikanami. How did we learn Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon? What's Rav Shimon's even greater leniency? Not that Gag and Chatzar is the same Rishus. We had before. Rav Shimon's leniency is that Gag and Chatzar and Karpa is Rishus Achas. Now, and we mentioned that Amud Aleph, that Karpa and Mavi is in the same category. Look at what this Beraisa mentioned. This Beraisa mentioned Gag, Chatzar, Achsadra, Mirpeses, no mention of a Karpet. Why not? If this would have been authored by Rav Shimon, they would have added in these Rishuyas as well. Rishuyas, Lashon Rabim, Karpaf, and a Mavoi. Taikenama, since the Lithuanian Karpaf and Mavoi is indeed Shema Mino, that the author of this Beraisa is not Rav Shimon. L'Rabbanan, of course, Shmuel is Maida. L'Rabbanan, that when does the Chachamim say you could carry Ligag L'Chatzir? Kishalo Yeru. Because if you made an Eruv, then there's a fear, L'Rabbanan. Man at the bottom will be in the Chatzir. Here we have another attempted proof. 2 Rav, 4 Rav, from the following Beraisa. 5 Chatzeros. The 5 Chatzeros, number 1, each one is open to the other. Number 2, each one is also individually opened up to the Mabui. And the Shachachu Kulam V'lo Yerbu. V'lo Yerbu, the Havamina now is not only that they did not make an Eruv, one with the neighboring Chatzer, that they didn't even make an Eruv with themselves, says the Beraisa, Asur lahachnis ulohoitzi, mechatzer lomavui, umin hamavui lochatzer. Now clearly that's not Rav Shimon, just to make that clear, because according to Rav Shimon, like we mentioned, that was his leniency. A chatzer and a mavui is like a karpa, is also one rishus, but this is the chachamim. This is the chachamim, and the kalim. Kalim that when Shabbos began were already in the Chatzar, even though this Chatzar itself made no Eruv, still Mutal Tal to run in this very Chatzar. I'll go more than that. What did we say according to the Chachamim? Even Chatzar l'Chatzar. As long as it didn't begin by bites. However, Ubemabu Yasur, and the understanding is that any Kalim that began in the Mabui, at least, why do you not allow it to carry in the Mavi? That's a chumrah by a Mavi l'sisu. That's all the Chachamim. However, Rav Shimon is matter. What's the heter? What does he add? Never came with Shafsu Babayis. Matter means if something began in the Chatzir, not only can you take it in the same Chatzir, not only can you take it in Chatzir l'Chatzir, the Chachamim agree with that. Shimon now adds, you can even take Keli Sheshavas b'Chatzir. There was no Eruv. You can take it even into the Mavi. Okay. Rav Shimon Omer calls man shehem shol rabim v'shachachu v'lo yervu. That's a problem. V'lo yervu. That goes against Shmuel's understanding. That goes against Rabbi Yechanan's understanding in Rav Shimon. This is a Raya Tanach. Then we say Gag and a Chatzir and a Achsadra and a Mirpeses and a Karpaf and a Mavui kulam rishus achas. So again, mamish. The words here are mamish like Rav. Taima d'lo yervu. Implying that if they were ma'arif, then according to Rav Shimon, right, you cannot carry, not even mechatzer l'chatzer. Forget about that, you can't carry mechatzer l'mavu. So l'chayda lo erev. This is a good for our kash on Shmuel. So the Gemara answers, you verstehst this pshat in this Bereich over here. When we have the words of Rab Shimon, that vil loy ervu, shachachu v'loy ervu, he's not speaking about an eruv of a chatzir. Now, normally we use different words. There's eruv chatzeris and the shituf muvois. Here, v'loy ervu means that they did not make a shituf. Here, that's what it means. You can say this as a doichik because, as we mentioned, the chatzeris all open one to the other. So making a common eruv chatzeris is already the shituf muvois. That is another sugya we had above because it's only them. Then they can go to each other from the side wall. They can go to them. They can go through the mavoi. Here, v'loy erbu means loy erbu chatzeros bahadi hadodi. That's called shituf mavois because they're open to each other. But it must be chatzer bebatim erbu. According to Shmuel, they did make an erub and still vazak Rab Shimon that you're allowed to carry. You're allowed to carry mechatzel l'chatzel, even though you can't go mechatzel l'mavoi. Even though you can't go mechatzel l'mavoi, Shimon holds 1 second. And there was no eruv mavois. I'm sorry. Rab Shimon says that there was no, even though there was no shituf mavois, you can go into the mavoi. But benegeya to the eruv chatzeres, he wouldn't even mention that. There was an eruv chatzeres. And the eruv chatzeres and shituf mavois are two different words. So the Gemara says here, my loy eruv, like we mentioned, because the chatzeres are open all to each other. Here we could use the term eruv chatzeres for the shituf mavois. The iba is sema because of this diuk. Rab Shimon l'deveim the rabbanon ka'amar luhu, like we just had in the piece above, even according to Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan, that lit Rab Shimon, he's lenient. Bein ervu, bein loy ervu. The chachamim that above on daf mem tes argue with Rab Shimon by the 2 outer and the 1 inner. L'kula alma l'Rabbanan, all of the leniencies that Rav Yehuda explained to us, b'shitas chachamim, there is only when there was no eruv. So therefore, Rab Shimon is l'dvrem the Rabbanan karmelahu l'didi loy shana ervu v'loy shana loy ervu achita Shmuel. As long as the manim did not begin in the batim, you can carry it. Good shlem mechatzel l'chatzel and mechatzel l'mavut. Elo l'didchu. At least oideli mias the heicha de lo yarvu. Just like the chachamim, as we learned to uphold that mechatzel l'chatzel you could carry, migag l'chatzel you could carry. So Rav Shimon is saying, if you can carry mechatzel l'chatzel, why can't you carry mechatzel l'mavut? Say the shus achasi. The shus achas means allow also from the chatzir to the mavui. And the Amrulei Rabbanan that we don't consider the chatzir and the mavui to be the same rishus. They're considered two different rishuyos. Like we said on Amud Aleph, that even though we never mentioned mavui on Amud Aleph, but when we say the Chachamim said karpeifois rishus achas, you know what's similar to the karpaf? The mavui. A mavui and the karpaf is considered one rishus. But it's a very different. The chatzir is already a spillover from the house. You can understand that. And a mavui is already a spillover from the Rishus HaRabbi. It's considered the separate domain. Now, Omar Mar, now that we quoted this Braisa, before we come back to Rav and Shmuel, what did we just learn? That the mavui asur, again, the havamina is, the mavui asur doesn't only mean that you can't carry mechatzel l'mavui. The mavui asur means that if a keli began Shabbos in a mavui, I know there was no shituf, but a mavui, in this mavui, you can't even carry that keli if you did not make a shituf mavois. You can't carry it more than dalal damas in the mavui. Says the Gemara, if that's the pshat in the Braisa, is lema misayele le Rab Zera Amarav, which is a novelty. This we had on Shabbos daf kuf lamed. Rab Zera Amarav mavui shelo nishtat fuboy a metalkolin ela dalal damas. Guys, even though the mavui has a koiri, has a koira or a lachi, doesn't matter. A mavui is really open from 3 sides. Mavui mafulish. Mavui she'enim mafulish, but it's open from 1 side. If you made a shituf mavais and you made the heked, then you can carry. Not only can you carry in it, you can carry mechatzel mavui. But if you did not make a shituf mavais, then we mamish consider the mavui like a carmelis. And what did the chachamim say? That in a carmelis you cannot carry more than dalal damas. The same thing goes Now, when Rav said that was a novelty, now we're finding l'chu'ura, a raya from a Tana to Rav. So the Gemara says that maybe those who argue with Rav and hold that even if you did not make a shituf mavois, at least in the mavui itself, you are allowed to carry a keli that sheshavas b'mavui, I de braisa. So they're going to add a letter that it's not ubimavui with a base, but they changed the base into a lamed. Ema ulim mavui asur, which means the braisa is going to be repeating the same thing twice, which will be superfluous. Because the braisa is saying you cannot carry to the mavi, meaning from the chatzar to the mavi, and chanami. You cannot carry from the chatzar to the mavui if you did not make an eruv. Guys, don't forget, whenever we say these dinim, before we go on over here, something becomes clear. We learned so many dafim together. Just make it clear. Every time you learned in a Mishnah, every time you learned down a Braisa, every time the Gemara speaks about, you cannot carry mechatzar l'mavui if you did not make a sheet of mavui, just to make it clear. According to Rav Shimon, you know what that means? It only means that if you had a keli sheshavas babayis, that is what you cannot take mechatzar l'mavui. Just to make that clear. Just it sheds light on everything we learned above. According to Rav Shimon, if you made no sheet of mavois and no eruv chatzeres and no internal eruv chatzeres, and according to Shmuel, yes, an internal eruv chatzeres, a keli sheshavas b'chatzer can be taken mechatzer l'chatzer and mechatzer l'mov. Okay, so back over here, this brayse is not a raya terav because maybe not ubim mavi but ulim etalam and mavi. If that's the case, then the brayse is repeating itself twice. The brayse spoke out explicitly. Don't carry from the chatzar to the mavi. So hainu reisha. So the Gemara says that Mishnah Yeseda Itzrach Alei. The Baraisa needed to repeat the words ulim mavi asur. Why? Because now the Taimam ki pligi Rabbanan Alei Rav Shimon. That Chachamim prohibit carrying mechatzir lamavi. Even though, like we learned today from Rabbi Yehuda, the Chachamim yes allow mechatzir lachatzir. By the way, as does Rabbi Meir. I would have thought hanimili. Again, heicha, the erhu, and therefore there's a fear that since they made a internal eruv chatzeros, there might be a keli now in the chatzer that was really in the bias before Shabbos came in, and it is because of that fear that we do not allow you to carry from the chatzer to the mavui. But one might have thought that the shitas chachamim, the chachamim who argue with Rav Shimon, they will hold at least heicha de lo yerbu, and therefore, why would a keli be b'chatzir if when Shabbos came in it wasn't the bias? It's shayach, like we learned from the hat, right, from the kumta and the sudra. But normally the kelim are not going to be there when Shabbos came in. So if there is no such a fear, maybe you would have erroneously thought that the chachamim are lenient like Rav Shimon and they would allow you to carry mechatzir l'mavui. So that's why Elyahu Michael Kamash Malan, no, that. Like we learned on Rabbi Yehuda, this just finishes the whole clarity of Rabbi Yehuda, that the Chachamim hold that Gagen and Chatzeros, and therefore Karpifois, are considered one Rishus. But the Chachamim hold that a Gag and a Chatzer is one Rishus. But a Karpaf, Lechachamim, is considered a separate Rishus, not like a Chatzer. A Mavui is like a Karpaf. And therefore, even when we know Lechachamim, that the Kalim were not in the bias when Shabbos came in because no eruv was made. So it's Kalim Sheshavas Bechatzir. And the Chachamim hold you can take it Nechatzir Legag, yes. And you can for sure take it Nechatzir Lechatzir, yes. Even though it belongs to two different people, yes. But from a Chatzir to a Mavui, which is like to a Chatzir to a Karpav, that's the word that he asked Ulam Mavui, it is Asur. So where are we up to, Chavrem? We have no Raya nor no refutation. Neither to Rav, neither to Shmuel. We'll stop over here, and God willing, we're going to continue tomorrow, focusing on Shitas Shmuel, which is Shitas Rabbi Yechanan, with the help of Hashem. It was.
Rabbi, the noise is terrible.
Okay, so it's not good. I have no idea why that happened then.
It's still going on right now.
I have no idea where this is coming from. Is it going on now?
Yes.
No wires over here.
Rabbi, this is a noise of electric current going next to the microphone.
But the microphone, is it from the, one second, how's it right now? Is it better?
No.
A little bit better, but not this worse.
Meaning, is there another electric device that's near the phone that's causing the static?
Be the electrical wire next to it, something like that.
Yeah.
Current running next to
Like
it.
right now, there's no static.
What?
Right now, there's no static.
So I know what it was. It was a wire from the camera. Wow.
There you go. Yeah, it killed us.
I'm sorry. Oh, that's not good.
All right, maybe for uploading to YouTube, you should get them to put the Chabad.org video on instead of this one.
Okay, I'll tell that to Danny.